Hi, my name is Chilonen Vasquez, and my presentation is about an iniquitous dibromochloroPropane, or DBCP, contamination that occurred in Lathrop, California at the Occidental Chemical Company factory. The purpose of this presentation is to shed light upon the suffering endured by workers at the Occidental Chemical Factory and on the importance of knowledgeable and up-to-date regulatory agencies. In this presentation, I will be covering the qualities and composition of DBCP, the testing of DBCP on animals in 1961, and the tests conducted by the National Cancer Institute in 1972 on DBCP, an overview of DBCP contamination in Lathrop, California, the effects of DBCP on male fertility, the lasting results of DBCP on male fertility in Lathrop, California, and an examination of the exposure areas and treatment wells in Lathrop, California. DBCP is a nematicide used on tropical fruit plants to kill nematode worms. It is slightly soluble in water and has a pungent smell. DBCP is applied to the soil by soil injection, sprinkler irrigation, drench application, granular deposition, or pressure or gravity flow irrigation. Once DBCP is in the soil, it volatilizes and has a fumigating action. Occidental Chemical Factory in Lathrop, California, both formulated and manufactured DBCP. In 1961, Torkelson and Company published a study showing acute and chronic effects of DBCP on rats. This study was sponsored by Shell Chemical Company and Dow Chemical Company. As you can see from the visuals I've created, exposed male rats had substantial sperm cell count decrease following DBCP exposure. In other parts of the study, male rats exposed to DBCP also saw necrosis of the testes and abnormal sperm development. In addition to these studies done in 1961, the National Cancer Institute initiated a study in 1972 to study the possible carcinogenicity of DBCP. These studies resulted in the National Cancer Institute labeling DBCP as very carcinogenic. In 1977, a worker at the Occidental Chemical Factory voiced his frustrations to his coworkers about his inability to get his wife pregnant. To his surprise, many of his coworkers were having the exact same problem. This resulted in the Occupational Safety and Health Administration issuing an emergency temporary standard for occupational exposure to DBCP because of the reports of sterility in these male workers. This bar graph summarizes an analysis of semen from DBCP-exposed workers. Almost 40% of the exposed workers had an affected sperm cell count level, with 13.1% being completely sterile or azoospermic. 1 year after termination of exposure to DBCP, in August 1978, there was a re-examination of workers exposed. Of the azoospermic men, none of them had improved sperm count, and none of them had the ability to father children. Of the oligospermic men, there were some men who had an improved sperm count, and 4 children were born to the wives of previously reported oligospermic men. 3 of these children were physically normal, but 1 had several defects. In February 1981, the state of California was approved to conduct additional studies and implementation of remedies. This included a groundwater analysis program, a soil analysis program, and a private and public well monitoring program. As for the private and public well monitoring program, the image I've provided shows placement of all the wells. These wells were of drinking water, and Occidental agreed to provide water to the affected and potentially affected residents. As for the groundwater analysis program, there were 14 total monitoring sites, 6 of which were selected to reflect conditions radiating out several hundred meters from the plant boundary locations. The purged water from this analysis program was collected in tanks and returned to the company's on-site hazardous waste tanks. As for the soil analysis program, approximately 1,100 to 2,400 cubic meters of material were excavated and hauled to California Class 1 and 2 sites. As a result of this entire study, it was concluded that DBCP was the predominant pesticide detected in numerous on-site wells and off-site private wells. The workers that were exposed to DBCP in 1977 suffered tremendous consequences at the hands of Occidental Chemical Company. After this major infertility episode, the EPA began taking regulation of chemicals and pesticides more seriously. It is unfortunate that this horrible injustice had to occur for this to happen, considering all of the information that was available on the toxicity of DBCP prior to this exposure. It is important that we acknowledge catastrophes like these and learn from our regulatory agencies' past mistakes.